The morning sun cast long shadows across the outdoor shooting range as Sarah Martinez adjusted her safety glasses and checked her equipment one final time. The familiar weight of her father's old hunting rifle felt comforting in her hands, like an extension of herself that she had learned to trust over the past 3 years. She had been coming to this range every Saturday morning since her divorce was finalized, finding solace in the precise, methodical nature of target shooting that helped quiet the chaos in her mind. At 32, Sarah was rebuilding her life from scratch. The accounting firm where she worked provided stability, but weekends belonged to her alone. The shooting range had become her sanctuary, a place where she could focus on nothing but her breathing, her stance, and the target ahead. It was here that she felt most like herself again, not the broken woman who had discovered her husband's affair, not the single mother struggling to explain to her 8-year-old daughter why daddy didn't live with them anymore, but simply Sarah, strong, capable, and in control. The range was unusually busy for a Saturday morning. Sarah noticed several men in military-style clothing occupying the lanes to her right, their movements precise and professional. She had seen military personnel here before. The range was only 20 minutes from the naval base, but today's group seemed different. Their equipment was more sophisticated, their demeanor more intense. She tried not to stare as she set up her shooting station, focusing instead on her routine. Sarah laid out her ammunition carefully, checked her ear protection, and positioned herself at lane 15. She had been working on improving her accuracy at 100 yards, a distance that still challenged her but had become achievable with practice. Her instructor, Mike, and retired Marine who ran the range, had been encouraging her progress. Last week, she had managed to place 8 out of 10 shots within the inner ring of the target, a personal best that had left her feeling proud and accomplished. As she raised her rifle and settled into her shooting position, Sarah became aware of activity in the lane next to her. One of the military men was packing up his equipment, his session apparently complete. She caught a glimpse of him in her peripheral vision, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of posture that spoke of years of discipline and training. His rifle case was larger and more professional than anything she had seen at the range before. Sarah took her first shot of the day, feeling the familiar recoil against her shoulder. The shot felt good, and she was eager to see her result, but range protocol required waiting for the all-clear signal before anyone could approach the targets. She settled back into position for her second shot, trying to replicate the exact stance and breathing pattern that had worked for her first attempt. The man next to her finished packing his equipment and stepped behind the firing line. Sarah could sense him watching as she prepared for her next shot, and she felt a moment of self-consciousness. She had grown comfortable shooting alongside other enthusiasts and weekend warriors, but having someone with obvious professional training observe her technique made her slightly nervous. She took her shot, and this time she could tell immediately that something was off. The recoil felt different, and she suspected the shot had pulled to the right. Still, she continued with her plan sequence, firing 3 more rounds before the rangemaster called the ceasefire to allow shooters to check and replace their targets. Walking down range with her target replacement, Sarah tried not to think about the scrutiny she had felt. She had worked hard to develop her skills and confidence, and she wasn't about to let intimidation from more experienced shooters undermine her progress. When she reached her target, however, her heart sank a little. Her grouping was wider than usual, with 2 shots significantly off-center. She had been hoping to show improvement today, not regression. As she stapled a fresh target to her frame, Sarah noticed the man from the adjacent lane approaching. Up close, he was even more impressive, probably in his early 30s, with intelligent dark eyes and the kind of weathered face that spoke of time spent in challenging environments. His movements were economical and purposeful, and, when he spoke, his voice was surprisingly gentle. "Excuse me," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "I couldn't help but notice your shooting. You have really solid fundamentals, but I think there might be an issue with your rifle." Sarah felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "Oh, I'm sorry if I was bothering you. I'm still learning, and I know I'm not very good yet." The man smiled, and his entire demeanor seemed to soften. "You're not bothering anyone, and you're better than you think. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. Your stance is excellent, your breathing control is good, and your follow-through is consistent. But I've been watching your shots, and they're not grouping the way they should be with your technique level." Sarah looked down at her rifle, suddenly uncertain. "Do you think something's wrong with it?" "It was my father's, and I've been using it for 3 years without any problems." "May I take a look?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'm Lieutenant Commander James Mitchell, by the way."
Most people call me Mitch.
Sarah Martinez, she replied, carefully handing him her rifle.
And, thank you for offering to help.
I was getting frustrated because I felt like I was doing everything right, but the shots weren't going where they should. Mitch examined the rifle with the practiced eye of someone who understood firearms intimately. He checked the scope mounting, tested the action, and ran his fingers along the barrel. After a moment, he nodded with the satisfaction of someone who had identified a problem. "There's your issue," he said, pointing to the scope.
"The mounting system has worked loose. It's not immediately obvious, but there's just enough movement to throw off your point of impact.
With your shooting ability, this would be incredibly frustrating because you'd be doing everything correctly but getting inconsistent results." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had been beginning to doubt her progress and wonder if she had reached some kind of plateau.
"Can it be fixed?"
"Absolutely, but it's the kind of job that requires the right tools and should be done by someone who knows what they're doing. There's a good gunsmith about 15 minutes from here who could take care of it properly." Mitch handed the rifle back to her carefully.
"In the meantime, would you be interested in trying something different?"
"I was about to leave, but I'd be happy to let you shoot a few rounds with my rifle."
"It might help you confirm that your technique is sound." Sarah hesitated for a moment.
She had never shot anyone else's weapon, and this man's rifle was clearly expensive and sophisticated.
"Are you sure? I wouldn't want to damage anything or waste your ammunition."
Mitch laughed, a warm sound that put her at ease. "Trust me, you're not going to damage anything.
And, after watching you shoot, I'm confident you'll handle it responsibly.
Besides, I'm curious to see how you do with a properly zeroed rifle." They walked back to the firing line together, and Mitch began unpacking his rifle case.
Sarah watched in fascination as he assembled what was clearly a precision instrument.
The rifle was matte black with a sophisticated scope and bipod system. Everything about it spoke of advanced technology and careful engineering. "This is a custom-built precision rifle," Mitch explained as he set it up.
"It's designed for long-range accuracy, so it should be very forgiving if your fundamentals are solid."
He adjusted the bipod and positioned the rifle on the bench. "The scope is already zeroed for this distance, so you shouldn't need to compensate for anything." Sarah approached the rifle with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The weapon felt different from her father's hunting rifle, heavier, more substantial, with a smoother action and more sophisticated ergonomics. Mitch stood beside her, offering guidance on the proper cheek weld and explaining the differences in the trigger system.
"Take your time getting comfortable with it," he said.
"The trigger is set lighter than what you're probably used to, so let it surprise you rather than trying to anticipate the break." Sarah settled into position, adjusting her stance to accommodate the different balance and feel of the rifle. Through the scope, the target appeared much larger and clearer than she was accustomed to. She could see individual scoring rings with perfect clarity, and the crosshairs were incredibly precise and steady. Following her practiced routine, Sarah controlled her breathing and began to apply pressure to the trigger. The break was incredibly clean and crisp, and the recoil was surprisingly mild despite the rifle's power. She could tell immediately that this shot was different from anything she had experienced before.
"How did that feel?" Mitch asked. "Amazing," Sarah replied honestly.
Everything about it felt more precise and controlled. The trigger, the recoil, even the way it sits in my hands. "Take 4 more shots and let's see how you do," Mitch suggested. "Just focus on consistency and let the rifle do its work." Sarah fired her remaining shots with growing confidence. Each pull of the trigger felt perfect, and she could sense that her shots were going exactly where she intended them. When the range master called the ceasefire, she was eager to see her results but almost afraid to hope for too much improvement.
Walking downrange together, Mitch asked about her shooting background.
Sarah found herself opening up about her reasons for taking up the sport, her father's influence, and the therapeutic value she found in the discipline and focus required. She was surprised by how easy it was to talk to him, and how genuinely interested he seemed in her story. When they reached her target, Sarah gasped. All 5 shots were grouped tightly in the center ring, with 4 of them nearly touching. It was by far the best shooting she had ever done, and she felt a surge of pride and accomplishment that went beyond simple marksmanship.
"That's outstanding shooting," Mitch said, and she could hear genuine admiration in his voice. "Your fundamentals are really solid.
With the right equipment and maybe a little coaching, you could be competitive at a pretty high level." Sarah stared at the target, hardly believing what she was seeing. "I had no idea I was capable of shooting like this. I thought I was just a weekend hobbyist who might eventually get decent." "Equipment makes a huge difference," Mitch explained. "But, more importantly, this proves that your technique is much better than you realized. Once you get your scope properly mounted, I think you'll see a significant improvement in your regular shooting." As they walked back to the firing line, Sarah felt a confidence she hadn't experienced in years. The tight grouping on the target represented more than just good marksmanship, it was proof that she was capable of excellence, that the work and dedication she had put into learning this skill had paid off in ways she hadn't expected. "Would you be interested in some coaching?" Mitch asked as they reached his shooting station. "I'm usually here on Saturday mornings, and I enjoy helping serious shooters improve their skills." "You clearly have the dedication and natural ability." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. The offer was incredibly generous, but she also sensed something more in his suggestion. There had been an easy chemistry between them, a natural rapport that went beyond just discussing shooting techniques. "I would love that," she said. "But, are you sure you have time? I imagine you have plenty of other things to do on your weekends." Mitch smiled as he began cleaning his rifle. "I'm stationed here for the next year while I finish up some training programs. Weekends can actually get pretty quiet, and I miss having people to shoot with. Most of my team is deployed right now." As they talked, Sarah learned that Mitch was a Navy SEAL who had been assigned to a special training program at the local base. He had been in the military for 12 years and had completed multiple deployments, but he spoke about his service with humility rather than bravado. She found his perspective on leadership, teamwork, and personal development fascinating, and she was struck by how different he was from her preconceptions about special operations personnel. "What made you interested in precision shooting?" he asked as they finished packing up their equipment. Sarah considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I think it was the control aspect. After my divorce, I felt like everything in my life was chaotic and unpredictable. Shooting requires such focus and discipline that it became a way for me to prove to myself that I could still accomplish something difficult and meaningful." Mitch nodded with understanding. "That makes perfect sense. A lot of people find similar value in the sport. There's something powerful about the immediate feedback and the way improvement comes from consistent practice and attention to detail." As they prepared to leave the range, Sarah felt reluctant to end the conversation. She had enjoyed Mitch's company more than she had expected, and she was genuinely excited about the possibility of improving her shooting under his guidance. But she also recognized that she was attracted to him in ways that went beyond his expertise with firearms. "Same time next week?" Mitch asked, shouldering his rifle case. "Absolutely," Sarah replied. "And thank you for today. You've given me a lot to think about, and I'm excited to get my rifle fixed." "It was my pleasure," Mitch said. "You're going to be surprised by how much you improve once you have reliable equipment." As Sarah drove home from the range, she found herself replaying the morning's events. The shooting had been incredible, but she was equally affected by her encounter with Mitch. There had been something special about their interaction, a natural ease and mutual respect that she hadn't experienced in a long time. She thought about her daughter Emma, who was spending the weekend with her father. Emma was curious about her mother's shooting hobby and had asked several times if she could visit the range. Sarah had been hesitant to introduce that element of her life, but perhaps it was time to consider sharing more of her interests with her daughter. The tight grouping on the target had proven that she was capable of much more than she had believed possible. If that was true about her shooting, what other areas of her life might benefit from better equipment, proper guidance, or simply the confidence to aim higher than she had thought possible? Sarah pulled into her driveway with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. Next Saturday couldn't come soon enough. The week that followed Sarah's encounter with Mitch passed with unusual anticipation. She found herself thinking about their conversation during quiet moments at work, remembering the way he had patiently explained the technical aspects of precision shooting and the genuine encouragement he had offered. More than once, she caught herself wondering what other topics they might discuss, what stories he might share about his military experience, and whether the easy rapport they had established would continue when they met again. On Tuesday, Sarah took her father's rifle to the gunsmith Mitch had recommended. The shop was tucked into an industrial area she had never explored, and the owner, a gruff but knowledgeable man named Frank, confirmed what Mitch had diagnosed. The scope mounting had indeed worked loose, and the problem had probably been developing gradually over several months. "You're lucky someone spotted this," Frank said as he examined the rifle. "A lot of shooters would have assumed they were just having bad days and never figured out the real problem. Whoever pointed this out knows what they're doing." Frank explained that the repair would take a few days, as he wanted to properly bed the action and ensure that everything was aligned correctly. "When you get this back, it's going to shoot like a different rifle," he promised. "Your groups should tighten up significantly." Sarah left the gun shop with mixed feelings. She was excited about the upcoming repair, but she also realized that she would have to explain to Mitch that she didn't have her rifle for Saturday's shooting session. Would he still be willing to let her use his equipment, or had his offer been contingent on working with her own weapon? Thursday evening brought an unexpected phone call from Emma's school. Her daughter had been in a minor playground accident, nothing serious, but she had scraped her knee and was feeling sorry for herself. Sarah's ex-husband Kevin was supposed to pick Emma up, but he was stuck in a business meeting and couldn't get away. Sarah arrived at the school to find Emma sitting in the nurse's office with a bandaged knee and tear-stained cheeks. At 8 years old, Emma was usually resilient and independent, but today's mishap had overwhelmed her. Sarah gathered her daughter in her arms, feeling the familiar surge of protective love that made everything else in the world seem insignificant. "It hurts, Mommy," Emma whispered against her shoulder. "And I was scared when I fell." "I know, sweetheart," Sarah murmured, stroking Emma's dark hair. "But you're okay now, and these things happen. You're braver than you know." As they drove home, Emma's mood gradually improved. She chattered about her school day, her friends, and her excitement about an upcoming field trip to the Science Museum. Sarah found herself thinking about how much Emma had grown and changed over the past year, adapting to the new realities of her parents' divorce with a resilience that sometimes amazed her. "Mommy, can I ask you something?" Emma said as they pulled into their driveway. "Of course, baby. What's on your mind? When you go shooting on Saturdays, are there other people there? Like, do you have friends there?" Sarah was surprised by the question. She and Emma had discussed her shooting hobby in general terms, but Emma had never shown particular curiosity about the social aspects. "There are other people there, yes. Most of them are very nice, and I've gotten to know a few of them. Why do you ask?" Emma was quiet for a moment, apparently considering her words carefully. "I was just wondering if you were lonely when I'm at Daddy's house. I know you miss me, and I thought maybe you had friends to spend time with." The question hit Sarah with unexpected emotional force. She had worked hard to project strength and stability for Emma's sake, never wanting her daughter to worry about her well-being. But Emma's concern suggested that her 8-year-old was more perceptive than Sarah had realized. "I do miss you when you're at Daddy's house," Sarah said honestly. "But I'm not lonely in a sad way. I enjoy having time to pursue my interests, and yes, I've met some nice people at the shooting range. There's actually someone who's offered to help me improve my shooting skills." "Is he nice?" Emma asked with the directness that only children possess. Sarah felt her cheeks warm slightly. "Yes, he's very nice. He's in the Navy and he's very good at shooting. He noticed that something was wrong with Grandpa's rifle, and he helped me figure out how to get it fixed." "Maybe I could meet him someday," Emma suggested. "If you think he's nice, he's probably okay." That evening, after Emma was asleep, Sarah found herself considering her daughter's words. Emma's perceptiveness about her social life was both touching and sobering. Sarah had thought she was successfully balancing her roles as a single mother and an independent woman, but perhaps the boundaries weren't as clear as she had believed. She also realized that she was more invested in Saturday's shooting session than she had admitted to herself. The prospect of spending time with Mitch had become a highlight of her week, something she was looking forward to with an excitement that went beyond simple interest in improving her marksmanship. Friday at work dragged by with unusual slowness. Sarah found herself checking the clock repeatedly and having to refocus on her accounting tasks. Her colleague Janet noticed her distraction during their afternoon break. "You seem different this week," Janet observed over coffee in the break room. "More energetic, maybe? Did something good happen?" Sarah hesitated, not sure how to explain her situation. Janet was a good friend and confidant, but Sarah had been private about her personal life since her divorce. "I met someone interesting at the shooting range last weekend. He offered to help me improve my technique." Janet raised her eyebrows with obvious interest.
Someone interesting? What kind of interesting? Good-looking interesting? Smart interesting? Single interesting?
All of the above, I think, Sarah admitted. But I don't know much about him yet, and I'm not even sure if there's anything beyond his willingness to help me with shooting. But you're hoping there might be, Janet said with a knowing smile.
I can see it in your face. You look like someone who has something to look forward to.
Saturday morning arrived cloudy and cool, with the kind of overcast sky that made the shooting range feel especially peaceful and isolated. Sarah arrived earlier than usual, partly because she was eager to see Mitch again and partly because she wanted to observe the range environment more carefully. She had spent 3 years focused primarily on her own shooting, but now she was curious about the broader community of enthusiasts who gathered there. Mike, the range master, greeted her warmly as she signed in. "How's the rifle situation working out?" he asked.
That young SEAL mentioned that you were getting some work done.
Sarah was pleased that Mitch had followed up on their conversation.
The gunsmith confirmed what he suspected.
"Should have it back early next week, and hopefully it will shoot much better."
"Mitch knows what he's talking about," Mike said approvingly.
"We don't get many SEALs here, but when we do, they're usually good people. Professional, helpful, respectful of the range rules."
"You're fortunate to have someone like that offering guidance."
Sarah sat up at her usual lane and began arranging her equipment. Without her rifle, she felt somewhat incomplete, like a musician arriving at a concert without her instrument. She had brought her shooting accessories and plenty of determination, but she was dependent on Mitch's generosity for the actual firearms portion of the morning. At 9 o'clock sharp, Mitch arrived carrying his rifle case and a larger equipment bag than she had seen the previous week. He spotted her immediately and approached with a smile that made her heart skip a beat.
"Good morning, Sarah. How has your week been?"
"Good, thank you. I took the rifle to Frank's shop, just like you suggested."
"You were absolutely right about the scope mounting issue. Frank's excellent," Mitch said as he began setting up his equipment.
"He'll take good care of you, and that rifle will shoot like a dream when he's finished with it." He paused in his unpacking and looked at her directly. "I brought some additional equipment today, if you're interested in trying some different approaches to precision shooting." Sarah watched as Mitch assembled not just his rifle, but also a sophisticated spotting scope on a tripod and what appeared to be a chronograph for measuring bullet velocity.
"This is much more elaborate than what I'm used to. Are you sure you want to spend your morning teaching a beginner?"
"You're not a beginner," Mitch said firmly. "You're an intermediate shooter who's ready to learn some advanced techniques.
Besides, I enjoy this.
It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to work with someone who's genuinely interested in improving."
As they began shooting, Sarah was impressed by Mitch's teaching ability.
He explained each concept clearly, demonstrated techniques before asking her to try them, and offered corrections in a way that was encouraging rather than critical. She learned about reading wind conditions, adjusting for different ammunition weights, and the importance of consistent follow-through. The key to precision shooting, Mitch explained as Sarah prepared for another shot, is understanding that every variable matters. Temperature, humidity, wind, your physical condition, your mental state, they all affect your performance. The goal is to control as many variables as possible and account for the ones you can't control. Sarah found the systematic approach appealing. It reminded her of the methodical nature of accounting work, where attention to detail and consistency were paramount.
"Is this how you approach things in your military work?" "Absolutely," Mitch replied.
"In my job, precision can be the difference between mission success and mission failure, between bringing everyone home safely and having to live with tragedy. The skills we're practicing here translate directly to high-stress situations where there's no room for error." As the morning progressed, Sarah became aware that their conversation was flowing as naturally as the shooting instruction. Mitch shared stories about his training experiences, the challenges of military life, and his thoughts about transitioning back to civilian pursuits eventually. Sarah found herself opening up about her work, her relationship with Emma, and the personal growth she had experienced since her divorce. "It sounds like you've built a really solid life for yourself and your daughter," Mitch said during a break between shooting sessions. "That takes tremendous strength, especially when you're doing it largely on your own." Sarah felt a warmth at his understanding that went beyond simple attraction. "Some days are harder than others, but Emma makes everything worthwhile.
She's the most important thing in my life."
"I'd like to meet her someday," Mitch said casually, then seemed to realize the implications of his statement.
I mean, if you think that would be appropriate.
I don't want to overstep or make assumptions about where our friendship might be heading. The word friendship hung in the air between them, and Sarah sensed that Mitch was being deliberately cautious about expressing his interest. She appreciated his respectfulness, but she also wanted him to know that she was open to the possibility of something more developing between them.
I think Emma would like you, Sarah said carefully.
She's been curious about whether I have friends at the shooting range.
8-year-olds don't miss much.
Smart kid, Mitch said with a smile. I'm looking forward to the day when I can tell her about how good a shot her mother is becoming. By the end of their session, Sarah had achieved some of the best shooting of her life. Under Mitch's guidance, she had consistently placed shots in the center ring of targets at distances she had never attempted before. More importantly, she understood the principles behind her success and felt confident that she could replicate the results in future sessions. As they cleaned up their equipment, Mitch made an unexpected suggestion.
There's a local shooting competition next month that I think you should consider entering.
It's designed for civilian shooters of all skill levels, and, based on what I've seen today, you'd be competitive in the intermediate division. Sarah felt a surge of excitement mixed with nervousness.
Do you really think I'm ready for something like that? I've never shot in any kind of formal competition.
I think you'd surprise yourself, Mitch said. The format is similar to what we've been practicing today, and you'd have several weeks to prepare.
Plus, if you're interested, I'd be happy to help you get ready.
As they walked toward the parking lot, Sarah realized that Mitch's offer represented more than just shooting instruction. He was inviting her to participate in his world, to challenge herself in ways she had never considered, and to spend additional time together in pursuit of a shared goal.
I'd like that very much, she said.
Both the competition and the preparation.
When would we need to start training more seriously? How about Wednesday evenings? Mitch suggested.
The range offers extended hours during the week for members, and it would give us more time to work on specific techniques. Sarah felt her pulse quicken at the prospect of seeing Mitch twice a week.
That sounds perfect.
I'll need to arrange childcare for Emma on Wednesday evenings, but that shouldn't be a problem. As they reached their cars, Mitch turned to face her directly.
Sarah, I want to be clear about something.
I'm enjoying our time together immensely, both the shooting instruction and just getting to know you.
I hope that's mutual.
Sarah felt her heart racing, but she met his gaze steadily.
It's definitely mutual, Mitch.
I haven't looked forward to anything this much in a very long time.
Good, he said softly. I was hoping you'd say that.
Driving home from the range, Sarah reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 1 week. The shooting lessons with Mitch were opening up possibilities she had never imagined, both in terms of her athletic development and her personal relationships. For the first time since her divorce, she was allowing herself to hope that she might find companionship and romance with someone who truly understood and appreciated her. Emma was waiting for her when she arrived home, full of energy after her weekend with her father. As they prepared lunch together, Emma peppered her with questions about her morning at the range.
Did you see your Navy friend again, Mommy?
Yes, I did. He's helping me learn some advanced shooting techniques, and he thinks I'm good enough to enter a competition.
Emma's eyes widened with excitement. A competition? Like winning a trophy?
Possibly, Sarah said, smiling at her daughter's enthusiasm.
Would you like that? I think it would be awesome if you won a trophy. Can I come watch?
Sarah paused, realizing that she hadn't considered whether spectators would be welcome at the competition.
I don't know yet, but I'll find out. Would you like to meet my friend Mitch sometime? Emma nodded eagerly. I want to meet someone who thinks my mommy is good at something cool.
That evening, after Emma was asleep, Sarah found herself planning for the weeks ahead with an excitement she hadn't felt in years. The shooting competition would give her a concrete goal to work toward, and the additional time with Mitch would allow their relationship to develop naturally. She was embarking on a journey that would challenge her in ways she couldn't yet imagine, but, for the first time in years, she felt ready for whatever lay ahead. The Wednesday evening that marked Sarah's first intensive training session with Mitch arrived with a mixture of anticipation and nervous energy that had been building since their weekend conversation. She had arranged for her neighbor Mrs. Chen to watch Emma, explaining that she had joined a shooting club and needed to attend evening practice sessions. Mrs. Chen, a retired school teacher who had become like a grandmother to Emma, was delighted to help and seemed pleased that Sarah was pursuing a serious hobby. Sarah arrived at the range just as the late afternoon sun was beginning to fade, casting the facility in the golden light that photographers called magic hour. The range felt different in the evening, quieter, more intimate, with only a handful of serious shooters taking advantage of the extended hours. She spotted Mitch's truck in the parking lot and felt the familiar flutter of excitement that had become associated with seeing him. Inside the range office, she found Mitch reviewing what appeared to be training plans and equipment lists. He looked up as she approached, and his smile of greeting sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with shooting and everything to do with the growing attraction between them. "Right on time," he said, gathering his papers. "I've put together a structured program that should have you ready for the competition in 6 weeks. We'll focus on different skills each session, building systematically toward the kind of performance you'll need." Sarah examined the training schedule he handed her, impressed by its thoroughness. The plan included sessions on wind reading, positional shooting, mental preparation, and equipment optimization. "This looks incredibly detailed. Are you sure you're not spending too much time on this?" "Trust me, I'm enjoying it," Mitch replied. "I miss having training projects to work on, and teaching someone with your aptitude and dedication is genuinely rewarding." They made their way to the firing line, where Mitch had already set up an elaborate training station. In addition to his precision rifle, he had brought targets of different types, a wind meter, and what appeared to be a shooting timer. The setup looked more professional than anything Sarah had seen outside of military or law enforcement contexts. "Tonight we're going to work on positional shooting," Mitch explained as they settled into their workspace. "The competition will include shots from standing, sitting, and prone positions, each with different time limits and accuracy requirements. Most recreational shooters only practice from a bench rest, so this will be new territory for you." Sarah watched as Mitch demonstrated the proper techniques for each shooting position, noting how his body created stable platforms even without mechanical support. His movements were economical and precise, developed through years of practice under conditions much more demanding than a civilian competition. "The key to shooting without a bench," he explained, "is understanding how to use your skeleton as a natural support system. Muscle tension creates tremors, but proper bone alignment creates stability." When it was Sarah's turn to try, she found the transition challenging. After 3 years of bench rest shooting, attempting to maintain accuracy while standing or sitting required completely different techniques. Her first attempts were significantly less precise than her weekend performance, and she felt a surge of frustration. "This is normal," Mitch assured her, noting her expression. "You're learning an entirely new skill set. The fact that you can maintain any accuracy at all on your first attempt is actually impressive." Over the course of 2 hours, Sarah gradually adapted to the new demands. Mitch was a patient teacher, offering adjustments to her stance and grip while explaining the biomechanics behind each technique. She found herself admiring not just his expertise, but his ability to break down complex skills into manageable components. "Your improvement curve is remarkable," he said as they concluded the session. "Most people take weeks to achieve the stability you're showing tonight." As they cleaned their equipment, their conversation drifted to more personal topics. Mitch shared stories about his military training, the challenges of deployments, and his thoughts about eventually transitioning to civilian life. Sarah found herself telling him about Emma's school activities, her work at the accounting firm, and the way she had rebuilt her confidence after her divorce. "It sounds like you've created exactly the life you wanted," Mitch observed. "That takes tremendous courage, especially when you're starting over." "Some days feel more successful than others," Sarah admitted. "But I'm proud of what Emma and I have built together. The shooting has been a big part of my personal growth. It's given me something that's entirely mine." "And now you're sharing it," Mitch pointed out gently. "That says a lot about where you are in your journey." As they prepared to leave, Mitch made a suggestion that surprised her. "My team is having a casual barbecue this Saturday afternoon. Nothing formal, just a chance for guys who work together to spend time with their families. Would you and Emma like to come? I think she might enjoy meeting some other military kids, and you."